Very much for joining us on Business Today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm actually quite excited to have this conversation and discussion with you regarding the activities of the Namibia Stock Exchange, but most importantly, what future plans you guys have in store. Tiaan, how is the current state of listing on the Namibian Stock Exchange, you would say?
So as it stands, our initial public offerings on the Namibian local market is usually few and far between, largely because so much of our economy is owned by foreign multinationals, and there's really no incentive for them to localize and to open up for Namibian shareholding and to open up their books. So unfortunately, I'd like to see a lot more activity in that space. And we had a discussion yesterday about the Namibian Financial Sector Charter, and that's one of the key issues that government as a policy and as stakeholders, we all want to see more broad-based Namibian shareholding in the companies that we interact with every day.
Right. I mean, you raise a very important point there of looking at a broad-based approach to participation within the Namibian economy. What, from your perspective, what exactly are you guys busy with and you guys are doing to try and get stakeholder, local or domestic or Namibian-based collaborative initiatives and efforts to try and get to that point?
Well, like I mentioned, the financial sector strategy is looking at that. We've seen the Bank of Namibia incentivize and encourage banks to list, and we've seen most of the banks actually list and open up their shareholding. We've seen NTC do it. We've seen Paratus do it. So many of the institutions that you might deal with on a daily basis, you have the opportunity to be a shareholder in as well. Right. But if I walk into a shop in Namibia, on the retail side, certainly, there's no opportunity there for me to be a shareholder in the company that I might be supporting. And I think it's important for companies that want loyalty to also give people and Namibians the opportunity to take part in the profits and the control of the companies that are serving us.
Right.
So obviously, we want to create a market that's viable for them. For our pension funds to invest locally so that all our pension fund money doesn't necessarily have to be invested outside the country. So the pension fund regulations, there's reforms underway on that as well to try to encourage Namibian investment and hopefully also create the opportunities for companies to then open it up.
Yeah, and increase the domestic ownership of those multinational companies, hopefully.
Yes, exactly.
So, Tiaan, how will you describe the current daily volumes and the value of the Namibia Stock Exchange, comparatively looking at patterns, comparatively looking at patterns of this year and the preceding years?
So this year and last year, we've seen volumes be lower, and that's largely because our pension funds are sometimes fully invested in some of the local stocks, so they are in a buy and hold position because they don't necessarily want to sell it because there isn't a new asset that they might prefer to want to buy. So again, the lack of new IPOs leads to lower trading volumes, even though we've seen the prices of many of our listed companies go up quite a lot. I think that's a different reflection because that shows the companies are doing well. And especially coming out of the depressed values after COVID, we're seeing a very good recovery there. Specifically, I can mention Capricorn and Standard Bank have both gone up significantly, but their profits are also significantly higher.
Volatility is a component or is a factor of many, if not all, stock exchanges the world over. Namibia is definitely not spared from that. Managing a stock exchange does require a very strong hand and stability in maintaining stability. How do you manage to maintain stability at the Namibia Stock Exchange?
From a regulatory perspective, when we're looking at the listing requirements and applying that on our issuers, these are international best practices. So there isn't something that we are requiring that is untoward or might be out of the ordinary in the bigger scope of the business community. You know, IFRS reporting, external auditors, checking that the numbers are correct and that they are reflecting accurate numbers. These are standard in most businesses. And the fact that those details are then being publicly disclosed also allows analysts and researchers to dig into the numbers and really analyze them. Right. So we try to ensure that all the information is given to all potential shareholders at the same time, so that you don't have people dealing in information that is not public. And then secondly, making sure that the information that is released is correct and accurate.
Right. There is an analogy that says that when the South African economy sneezes, we tend to catch a cold to demonstrate our closeness to South Africa. The Namibia Stock Exchange is in a strategic partnership with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. What does this particular partnership entail, and how exactly does it add value to the Namibia Stock Exchange?
Sure. So on your first point about the sneeze, I think that was the case, but maybe not so much anymore. Okay. If we look at the pricing, we will see that Namibian bonds have actually become cheaper than South African bonds. That tells me that the outlook, the macroeconomic outlook on Namibia is different from South Africa. And I probably wouldn't have said that 5 years ago, but I think the oil and gas discoveries have certainly changed the profile of the country and how we are being viewed. Now, our partnership with the JSE is a technical partnership. So for our equities, we use their trading system. So it's basically an outsourced technical solution. We do full surveillance and regulation and everything else on the market. We are just utilizing the tool, basically renting it. Okay. So it's been very good for us. We've been able to run the exchange at a very low cost because we haven't had to buy lots of different systems. Having said that, last year we also implemented our own system for the trading of bonds in the Namibian market. That went live in October, trying to create a liquid on-market bond market.
Are we looking at a more getting to a position of complete autonomy, or this particular partnership does serve you and will continue to serve you in future?
Especially for the dual-listed stock, the JSE partnerships work exceptionally well. So yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, having our own trading system now does then allow us to do some other things that we might not have been able to do with their system. Right. So it does give us that autonomy to move forward without necessarily being reliant on them.
Now, Tiaan, for the Namibian populace that are watching and listening to this particular discussion and conversation and are looking at getting involved in some way or another in terms of investing and getting some products from the NSX, you offer diversified products that benefit the investing public. Tiaan, can you point out what some of these products look like?
Sure. So obviously we've got our locally listed companies, everything from Namibia Breweries to Capricorn, Standard Bank, Oryx Properties, Paratus. There's a host of them. And obviously the way to invest in them would be through the stock exchange. But then there are a multitude of products as well. We have ETFs in the precious metal field where you can buy gold, platinum, or palladium. While that's not something you could buy in your personal capacity, you can buy an exposure on it. So you can buy $1,000 worth of gold ETF, which gives you the pricing of whatever gold price moves to, but it also gives you a hedge on the currency because those are dollar-based. So it gives you tools to get different kinds of exposure. Most recently, we also launched 10 ETNs. That's an exchange-traded note with RMB offering that product. Those notes are linked to individual foreign stocks, such as Alphabet, Facebook, Tesla, and the likes. So instead of having to open an account to go trade in a foreign market, you can get the appropriate exposure through this product. Also, one of the ETNs is the MSCI 100, which is the top 100 foreign stocks. Right. So these are interesting diversification tools. And again, dollar-based, so you actually have a currency hedge built into whatever the price does on that stock.
Right. I mean, because I've been looking at getting involved in the stock exchange or buying some form of shares or exposure for shares like Tesla, for example, Facebook being another one. Perhaps I give you a call when we're done here.
Don't call me, call your stockbroker. So all of these trades would be done via a member of the exchange, a stockbroker. So the exchange will make sure that it clears and it settles and that the best price is matched. But the actual trading on behalf of clients is done by stockbrokers.
No, thank you very much for that clarification, Tiaan. Now, stock exchange management is without no challenge. This we understand, and of course, you have alluded to some a little earlier on. Take us through some of these challenges, and you, as the head of the NSX, how are you mitigating and addressing these challenges, Tiaan?
So, last year we were lucky enough to win an award as the best managed stock exchange in Africa, which was a proud moment indeed. We work with a small team, dedicated people, and the systems that we use are fundamental in terms of regulating and overseeing the market. So the next step in our process will be the Central Securities Depository, for which we got a license earlier this year.
Right.
That which also that will mean the paper certificates that are currently still being utilized will be phased out, and there will be an electronic register. And when trading is completed, that system will actually speak to the banking systems, and the transfer of ownership and the transfer of funds will happen at the same time, thereby taking more risk out of the system.
Understanding the concept of a prudent policy formulation, development, and review, and its material impact on the investment environment, Tiaan, are the current policies or investment policies in line with what is going on in the world, and also looking at what the NSX is trying to do in terms of propping up essentially the Namibian economy, looking at a more inclusive approach and a broad-based approach to try and get more involvement by locals?
So I think there's certainly room for improvement there. As much as I think foreign companies that have operations here, and that especially that still want to come in, if you're applying for a license, then there's an opportunity there to have some requirements for local participation. And some of those licenses already have it. So the difference is those are not necessarily allowing the public to take part. It might be a specific regulator, government arm, whatever, that has a tag-along clause for 10%, something like that. But I think there's an opportunity for allowing these companies to open up their books and allow other shareholders in. What it does is it also allows that light of transparency that I was talking about earlier, right, for people to analyze the numbers and to see what's really going on. If somebody does a tax submission to the tax authority, that's all they look at. But if you make your finances public and you have in there that you are charging $10 million to use a brand of your parent company, then people can ask the appropriate questions as to why that is. Right.
Tiaan, there's a very famous analogy there. It's death and taxes that are always certain, but I think at this particular point, compliance, and more compliance. What is the level of compliance of listed companies in Namibia on applicable governance requirements?
So I think you would find most professionally run companies would be applying some sort of a corporate governance code already. Right. So whether it's the NAM code or whether it's King 4 in the region, those are fairly world-class standards that are being applied. But it wouldn't be much different from what you would see in London or Europe or many sections in the American section as well. You have a board of directors and subcommittees to which the executives report and disclose what's going on, and for that board to lead the strategy of the organization. These are all stock standard, but those are the requirements that are placed on listed companies. They have to have that, as well as the disclosure side of it, which is substantial, and which not listed companies do not have to do. Right. And that often entails not having to show how much profit they make or how much they're spending or what people are getting paid. And what research has shown is that listed companies tend to outperform unlisted companies by quite a margin. And part of that is the governance that is utilized and the sense of responsibility that is created when you are a public company.
Right. Tiaan, I'm going to divert a bit. we have seen, or we see that the Namibian population is fairly young, and we are seeing an increase in disposable income, and the working and that particular group of young professionals, young Namibians that are coming up and that are currently here, and those that will be coming up within the next few years. Does the NSX have a strategy in developing the next generation of investors, and also essentially catering to the current generation of investors?
Yes, and it's a strategy we've been applying for quite some time.
Right.
Firstly, we have the Scholars Investment Challenge. That is a virtual trading competition where teams of 3 or 4 compete against each other with a portfolio, a virtual portfolio. They trade over a period of 6 months, and they compete against each other. That used to be only for schools. We've expanded it to universities as well. That has been a very, very successful project. And we've actually seen many people active in the business community now, be it as asset managers, stockbrokers, and executives of all notes that came through that competition, and it gave them their first exposure to the stock market and how it works. Right. The second one is the Chartered Financial Analysts. We've been sponsoring CFA admissions for quite a few years now, because that's such a scarce skill in Namibia, and we've been trying to add people into that category for a while, and we've done so quite successfully. We've sponsored well over $1 million towards that already.
Very notable and commendable there. Tiaan, talk to us about your strategic plan to develop and deepen the capital market in Namibia as your way, essentially, of contributing towards the growth and the diversification of the Namibian economy.
The important thing from the NSX's side is we have to be the marketplace where buyers and sellers can meet. Right. And last year, when we got admitted as a full member to the World Federation of Exchanges, that potential marketplace got bigger. It'll make it easier for international investors to actually buy assets in Namibia, and the CSD will also take risk out of that. That's also a positive step forward. But the truth is, I foresee with the oil and gas process running forward, a vast amount of capital will be required for Namibian companies to provide the services that are going to be necessary for what's coming. This is a big wave. Yeah. We're going to need some big boats. So we'll have foreigners taking part in, and we'll have lots of people coming here. But realistically, either through their own or through joint ventures, there's going to be a lot of capital required. And I think the exchange is well positioned to be able to meet that need to the issuers and to the investors.
Outside of being well positioned, Tiaan, have you been receiving interest, or has there been international interest in the Namibia Stock Exchange pertaining to the oil and gas discoveries and potential that Namibia has?
On the bond side, we can certainly see there's been a pickup in demand, and we saw investors that have been out of the market for anything from 13 to 15 years that came back and started buying bonds at the long end of the yield curve. That means when they left the market, they were not confident in the way forward. And when they came back, it means that they were. Right. And that should be seen as a big positive.
Indeed. Tiaan, we are running out of time, but what are some of the other promising sectors that one should be paying attention to that are also attracting attention for investment at the current moment?
Like I said, the banking stocks have been doing very well, and I foresee, again, with the oil and gas wave, that's probably going to be good for banking overall. What I would love to see is something from the tourism sector that people can invest in. We currently administer the trading for we assist with the Gondwana shares. I hope to see them come to market soon. Agra is not yet listed. That's on the OTC trading board. So there's definitely ones that I can see coming through. Pupkewitz, Namib Mills, all of the asset managers and life insurance companies. I think there's lots that could be coming to market. And if I was in one of those institutions looking to solidify my client base, could do worse than listing and making them shareholders.
Indeed, there we're getting some tricks and tips there from Tiaan there. We have seen some companies coming on board to release IPO, some of which you have just alluded to. How crucial would you say is this in terms of more market diversification and just broadening the depth of our market? And what message do you have for local companies, Tiaan?
So I cannot overemphasize how important listings are, and especially IPOs. Every time there's an IPO, that company goes on a roadshow and does all kinds of information releases to explain what a stock is, what the exchange does, what a stockbroker does, and what the value proposition for that company is. So just on a financial education side, it's already important just because people get a broader understanding of how it works. But allowing people to exercise that option to buy into a company on a public basis with full information disclosure is huge. And we need more of them. And it's not only us that don't have a lot of listings. The whole region, even South Africa, there's a lot of private capital available. There's a lot of lending that's available. So companies don't necessarily have to come to market to raise capital. But I think for their public profile, it is very important that we have more Namibian companies allowing Namibians to be shareholders therein.
Right. Tiaan, before I let you go, I think it's very, very important again to perhaps just to reiterate and to just really give us just a tinge more bit of a elaboration regarding the potential of owning foreign exposure, or rather, as you termed it earlier on, and this I'm alluding to some of the stocks that are potentially available from your Teslas and your Facebooks. Could you perhaps touch a bit on that just for us a little more?
So like I said, the ETN is a structure whereby RMB effectively goes and buys the stock in a foreign market, and then they make it available on their balance sheet as a credit note, but it's directly linked to the price. Okay. Excuse me. And the same goes for the ETF then in terms of gold, silver, or palladium. Okay. But that's also very much based on what your view is on the currency. If you've got a negative view on the currency, then it's sometimes prudent to hedge some of your investments to not just be in Namibian dollar or in rand. So that's the strategy that's often utilized by asset managers as well, to have something in another currency to protect yourself or to hedge yourself against great currency movements. Right. So more recently, the rand has strengthened following the elections. Before that, it was pretty much one-way traffic. So these products are there for a reason. And of course, if you still like the underlying asset and you want to protect yourself on the currency, then it's a double benefit. Double benefit.
Tiaan Bazuin, thank you very much for your time and really just unpacking the current activities of the Namibian Stock Exchange, but most importantly, what the future looks like for the stock exchange and how we can really just have a very inclusive, an inclusive platform to be able to broaden our economic activity. Tiaan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All the best.